Let's begin with the foundations. Welcome to another lecture. Today we examine Tom Kane, the American voice actor whose career functioned as connective tissue across animation, video games, theme parks, and live event broadcasting. I am Professor Alexei. We will proceed with clarity and, I hope, a measured amount of dry amusement.
Hi everyone. I am Priyanka. I guess the best way to think about today is that we are listening for how one person's voice threaded through so many places we already know. It makes me wonder how much we notice and how much we simply feel.
To frame our discussion, Tom Kane was fundamentally a specialist in giving coherent personality to sound. If a composer writes notes and an orchestra plays them, then the conductor supplies intention. In that analogy, the voice actor is the conductor for a character. Through breath placement, timing, and color, he animated Professor Utonium, Yoda, Admiral Akbar, and countless others. And in parallel, he delivered authoritative announcer work for the Academy Awards and Disney parks, which required precision rather than persona.
I think the technical side is easy to miss. Like, voice acting is not just reading lines. There is mic choice, distance, plosive control, and matching the acoustic profile of a franchise. And then there is motion capture, which adds body to voice.
Indeed, in this context, it is crucial to understand motion capture as the capture of kinematics to drive a digital rig. In Star Wars: The Force Unleashed, Kane portrayed multiple roles using Industrial Light and Magic's capture pipeline, so the performance had to be legible through two channels simultaneously: the musculature and the microphone. The actor's prosody, the gait and stance, the micropauses between clauses. All must cohere so the digital character seems to think before it speaks, rather than merely reciting text after animation.
Moving on. Why does this matter outside a studio? I'm curious about continuity in big universes like Star Wars, where many voices appear across films, shows, games, and even rides. If the sound shifts, the world can feel unstable.
Clearly, Kane's work stabilized the Star Wars soundscape, Yoda in television and games, Admiral Akbar from games to theme parks, the newsreel narrator in the Clone Wars, and a brief but emblematic presence at the launch of The Bad Batch. Historically, voice actors were undercredited relative to on-screen performers, but as franchises became transmedia ecosystems, producers depended on consistent vocal identity, and the audience's ear grew more exacting, which arguably elevated recognition for this craft.
Basic facts help orient us. Two surprises stand out for me. He voiced both Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings games and Magneto in multiple Marvel titles. And that Disney Fast Play bumper so many families heard on DVDs, that was him too.
Let's proceed to the next point, the timeline. He began at age 15 in 1977, a remarkably early start that yielded 5 decades of work across media. In 2012, he became the voice of the Walt Disney World monorail system, and in 2017, he entered Star Wars live action as Admiral Akbar in The Last Jedi, succeeding Eric Bauersfeld. Around these, he anchored series such as the Powerpuff Girls and the Clone Wars, and announced multiple Academy Award ceremonies. Speaking of the parks, a brief personal note. I recall, during a visit to Florida, that peculiar academic sensation of recognizing a voice before recognizing a face. The monorail's calm, measured announcements carried the same clarity I knew from Clone Wars. It was, if you will, a small demonstration that a consistent voice can make public space feel narratively unified.
That's a nice connection. It makes me wonder how much our sense of place depends on sound design more than we admit.
As we continue, 3 questions will organize our analysis. First, how did Kane maintain continuity for legacy characters, originally defined by other performers? Second, counterfactually, what might have occurred had he not suffered a debilitating stroke in November 2020? And third, what remains unresolved about formal recognition for voice actors in our award institutions? Big question 1. Legacy continuity. Kane demonstrated a disciplined approach to timbral matching and performance intent. For Yoda, he balanced gravel and air with a syntax-forward delivery. For Admiral Akbar, he preserved the brassy nautical authority without caricature. For C-3PO, he maintained a fussily precise diction. And for Odin, he matched regal gravitas across a game and a Disneyland attraction. It is important to understand that continuity is not mimicry alone. It is an understanding of a character's decision tempo, where the breath lands, how vowels are shaped under stress, and which silences are meaningful.
Can we say the hardest part is voice color? Or is it more about timing and intention? Like, how do you avoid sounding like a perfect but empty impression?
To elaborate, the greatest challenge is aligning microrhythm with emotional logic. Studios provide reference tracks and character bibles. The actor studies prosody, resonance focus, and lexical stress patterns, then builds a living performance that survives new scripts. Kane's Clone Wars narrator shows the principle at scale. Newsreel cadence, clipped urgency, and neutral authority, yet never anonymous. In simpler terms, he played the same instrument, yes, but he also chose when not to play, and those rests kept the music authentic. Big question 2, the counterfactual. If Kane had not suffered a stroke in November 2020, we can infer he would likely have remained the default for Yoda and Akbar in new games, animated specials, and park updates, and perhaps continued as a franchise narrator when appropriate. He did in fact narrate the May 2021 premiere of The Bad Batch, which suggests producers valued his voice as a bridge between eras. Continuity of this kind reduces cognitive friction for audiences. Stories can pivot without sounding as if the world has changed microphones overnight.
What if we thought about it like this? Could his continued presence have influenced which characters returned? Or how often? Maybe recurring cameos for Yoda or Admiral Yularen would feel more natural, so writers would use them more.
Arguably yes, within limits. Writers and directors respond to available strengths. If you have a trusted Yoda who can deliver warmth, mischief, and gravitas on demand, then brief appearances become low risk, high reward. Similarly, a stable Akbar across media permits strategic callbacks without breaking immersion. Naturally, canon and story arcs still dominate, but reliable voice continuity often widens the feasible set of narrative choices. Big question 3, recognition. The Academy Awards, which Kane announced multiple times, do not currently offer a dedicated category for voice performance. There is an irony there. In contrast, the Annie Awards have long honored voice acting and animation. The Emmys recognize character voiceover and narration. BAFTA Games and the Game Awards credit performances that combine voice and performance capture. Yet, to some extent, public valuation still privileges on-camera visibility over sonic authorship.
I'm curious about present efforts. Are there movements that push for better crediting, fairer awards categories, or protection around AI cloning of voices? Maybe that is where change accelerates.
It is worth noting that unions and industry groups have increased advocacy on credit standards, residual structures for interactive media, and safeguards against synthetic voice misuse. And academic researchers are tracking listener perception of authenticity in synthetic versus human performance. Still, we observe an evidentiary gap. Systematic studies linking consistent voice casting to measurable audience trust across media are relatively sparse. Further research and frankly stronger award taxonomies would render the contributions of actors like Kane more visible to the historical record.
So, I guess that kind of sums it up. Voice actors shape our experience more than we consciously credit, and Kane's career is a case study in that quiet influence.
To summarize, voice acting is the disciplined art of animating character and brand through breath, diction, and timing. Tom Kane's portfolio spanning Yoda, Admiral Akbar, Professor Utonium, the Walt Disney World monorail, and high-profile live broadcasts demonstrates how one voice can unify a sprawling cultural landscape. We posed 3 questions: how he maintained legacy continuity, what might have unfolded absent his 2020 stroke, and how our institutions can better recognize voice performance. If this interests you, the adjacent inquiry is how performance capture and interactive design in video games recalibrate what we mean by a screen performance. Thank you for listening. This concludes our lecture for today.